In 1973, something happened that almost ended muscle cars. The Pontiac Firebird, one of America's most beloved muscle cars known for its powerful engines, found itself right in the middle of it all. Now, the Firebird wasn't really the bad guy here. This iconic car that had been thrilling drivers since the late 1960s just had terrible timing. That year, everything seemed to go wrong at once. The government started cracking down with new rules, car companies were caught lying to customers, and the whole market was falling apart. All of this mess nearly wiped out muscle cars completely, and the 1973 Firebird became the face of the disaster, the last stand of American muscle. By 1973, muscle cars were already in serious trouble. Most car companies had basically given up on building fast cars. They were facing tough new rules from the government, crazy high insurance costs, and people just weren't buying muscle cars like they used to. While Ford and Chrysler were making their engines weaker and slower, Pontiac decided to do something completely different. When everyone else was throwing in the towel, Pontiac's engineers decided to fight back. They created something that shouldn't have been possible under all the new rules, the Super Duty 455 engine. This wasn't just any regular engine. Car and Driver magazine called it the last of the fast cars, and they weren't kidding. Even though Pontiac claimed it only made 290 horsepower, this engine was probably the best thing they ever built. It had special forged pistons, round exhaust ports, and the same camshaft as the legendary Ram Air 4 from the good old days. But here's where the story gets really interesting and where the scandal that almost destroyed muscle cars forever starts to unfold. Pontiac didn't just build an amazing engine, they built an entire system of lies around it that would make today's car scandals look tiny in comparison. How Pontiac fooled the government. The real scandal wasn't just that Pontiac built a powerful engine in 1973 when they weren't supposed to. It was how they managed to trick the Environmental Protection Agency to get it approved. This story reads like a spy thriller, complete with rigged tests, secret changes, and a dangerous game of hide-and-seek with federal regulators. Pontiac figured out that the EPA's emissions tests only ran for exactly 50 seconds. Once they knew this, Pontiac engineers came up with a sneaky plan. They programmed the EGR system to reduce emissions and turn off after 53 seconds. So, for those crucial 50 seconds when the EPA was testing the car, the engine would run clean and pass all the tests. But once the test was over, the real beast would wake up and actually produce around 310 horsepower instead of the claimed 290. This wasn't just clever engineering, this was straight up lying to the federal government. The plan worked perfectly at first. Pontiac was able to sell what was basically a race car engine for the street when such things were supposed to be impossible. Only 252 Super Duty 455 engines made it into Trans Ams in 1973, making them instantly famous among car lovers who knew what was really going on. The EPA involvement. The scandal got much worse when the EPA discovered what Pontiac was doing. The government agency was not happy about being outsmarted, and they forced Pontiac to completely redo their EGR system. But the story gets even crazier. To make sure Pontiac actually installed the new legal system, the EPA made them paint the engine a different color, so EPA inspectors could see that the changes had actually been made. This public embarrassment sent shockwaves through the entire car industry. If Pontiac, the performance division of General Motors, could get caught red-handed lying to federal regulators, what did that say about all the other car companies? The scandal exposed a culture of deception that had been going on since the muscle car wars began, where manufacturers regularly lied about horsepower numbers to avoid insurance problems and government attention. The Pontiac deception was just the beginning of a much bigger problem. Throughout the entire muscle car era, car companies had been playing games with horsepower ratings. The practice was so common that the industry even had a name for it: underrating. For example, the legendary Ram Air 4 engine was almost certainly making way more than its advertised 370 horsepower. You could tell because it ran quarter-mile times that matched cars that supposedly had much more power. This systematic lying created a culture where nobody really knew how powerful American muscle cars actually were because everything was hidden behind corporate lies. When the Pontiac scandal broke, it exposed this entire dishonest system. Suddenly, regulators and regular people started questioning everything they'd been told about car performance and emissions. The trust between car makers and the government was completely destroyed, leading to even stricter rules and harsher punishments. The perfect storm. The 1973 Pontiac scandal couldn't have happened at a worse time for muscle cars. Just as the EPA was cracking down on Pontiac's cheating, the OPEC oil embargo hit America like a bomb. Gas prices went through the roof overnight, jumping from 30 cents to $1.2 per gallon. For muscle cars that typically got 7 to 13 miles per gallon, this made them too expensive for most people to drive. The timing was absolutely devastating. Insurance companies, who were already charging crazy high rates for muscle cars because young drivers kept crashing them, started charging premiums that were 300% higher than regular cars. A typical muscle car that cost $3,500 to $4,000 in 1970 would require an additional $1,000 to $1,500 per year just for insurance. When you added the new high gas prices and the growing distrust of car makers after scandals like Pontiac's, the muscle car market completely collapsed. The government crackdown. The scandal sped up cultural changes that were already happening. The Clean Air Act of 1970 had already started forcing car makers to install emissions equipment that made engines weaker. Cars with messed up spark timing got terrible gas mileage, and vehicles with air injection systems became slow and would sometimes stall even when you were just driving normally. The performance penalties were brutal. Studies showed that the costs of making 1973 cars comply with emissions rules were about 6 times higher than what the actual equipment cost. Overall, emissions-related costs made up more than 20% of an average car's price. When you combine this with poor performance and the public finding out that car makers have been lying about their engines all along, people completely lost faith in American performance cars. The government's response was quick and harsh. New regulations went way beyond just emissions controls. Safety standards required car makers to build heavier, slower cars. The 55 miles per hour national speed limit made high-speed performance pointless. By 1975, Ford only sold 63,000 Mustangs, compared to 600,000 in 1966. The end of an era. The 1973 Pontiac Firebird scandal became a symbol of everything that was wrong with the muscle car era: the lying, the environmental damage, the safety problems, and the cultural excess. When combined with the oil crisis and changing attitudes in society, it gave regulators and car makers the perfect excuse to abandon high-performance cars completely. By 1974, the muscle car era was officially dead, with the 1974 Pontiac GTO being the final farewell. The Super Duty 455 engine that had caused so much trouble was quietly discontinued. Muscle car names that survived were heavily weakened and sold more as luxury cars than performance machines. The age of American car dominance through raw power was finished. Looking back now, the 1973 Pontiac Firebird scandal wasn't just about one company's decision to cheat on emissions tests. It was the end result of an entire industry's approach to performance and regulation that ultimately couldn't be sustained. The modern car industry's focus on honesty and rules comes from lessons learned back in 1973, when Pontiac's lies almost ended the muscle car era. Today's fast cars are better, but they're built in a world where being honest and following the rules is a must. The 1973 scandal ended the wild, rule-breaking days of car making and pushed the industry to grow up and build cars in a more honest, responsible way. So, what do you think? Was Pontiac a villain for cheating the system, or a hero for giving us one last taste of real muscle? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more wild tales from automotive history. See you in the next video.